A special skill existed that protected users and backed them up. This was called the auto skill, which automatically attacked any enemy that got too close to the user. At first glance, it might have seemed like a modest skill, but it showed its true worth in the bloodiest and most brutal battles against monsters. This was the story of a lazy guy who, overnight, ended up with the most powerful weapon of all. Osamu Higanbana was 26 years old. He groaned loudly as he woke up, complaining about how sleepy he felt. He was jobless and spent his days glued to online video games. He muttered that he didn't feel like doing anything. It all started about 2 weeks ago. Osamu worked for an IT company that did system development as a subcontractor. Working holidays and pulling over 120 hours of overtime a month had become the norm. Even though it was tough, as long as he had coworkers grinding alongside him, he could somehow keep going. His colleague Yamada was also drowning in work, complaining that he was going insane too, and that he missed the last train again. He hadn't been home all week. Since the deadline was tomorrow, they had no choice but to push the project through right now. Osamu thought to himself that Yamada was hitting his breaking point. Osamu told Yamada they were in a really tough spot and acknowledged that it was true things were difficult right now. He called out to Yamada and told him that even so, he could keep hanging in there because Yamada was there with him. Osamu reminded him that they were the only ones starting at the same time, which makes them buddies. He encouraged Yamada by saying they should knock this project out together and then go out and get absolutely hammered. In the present, Osamu wondered why he kept thinking back to those times. Even now, after quitting the company, he still couldn't stop thinking the same thing. Osamu realized he hadn't noticed how much Yamada was changing. Then the terrible news came. They said they found Yamada dead at home. He had hanged himself. Someone shouted for Yamada in shock. Osamu was devastated because it was all because he had said the wrong thing. He felt it was all on him. Osamu swore he would never push himself again. He burned his savings while living a completely degenerate life. Since then, drowning in despair, he lost any will to work. Osamu was playing his game when he noticed a strange item on his screen. He wondered if he had an item like this, looking at something called the Book of Reincarnation displayed in his healing medicine slot. He expressed surprise, saying he had never heard of this item before. He thought he should delete it before it caused some glitch, and then he would be done. Video games were the only thing he had ever been good at since he was a kid. Being able to dive into what he loved was the perfect way to escape reality. A confirmation prompt appeared on the screen showing confirm and cancel buttons. He hesitated for a moment, then decided to click it. Everything changed. Osamu found himself lying in a completely different place. He wondered what was happening. He was surrounded by a beautiful garden with a gazebo structure nearby. He questioned whether this was a dream. He looked around at the elegant buildings and doves flying through the air. He thought the surroundings looked a lot like the game he used to play, but he wondered if he had just spawned somewhere else. He questioned if this was one of those game world reincarnations, but concluded that it had to be a dream. This dream was getting pretty hectic. Right then, a voice welcomed him. A young woman appeared and greeted him, welcoming him to this world. Osamu was stunned and thought to himself that she was beautiful like a flower. He wondered who she was, seeing her alone in such a place. The woman introduced herself as Messiah and stated she was a goddess. She told him she would grant him a skill. Osamu thought about what this place was supposed to be and questioned which one she meant. He wondered what the hell she was even talking about all of a sudden. Messiah asked which one he would like. Osamu thought to himself that he didn't get any of these skills out of nowhere. Osamu responded by asking her whatever she recommended. Messiah thought to herself, what a naturally disrespectful attitude this was. She told him he could pick whatever he recommended. She explained that normally people ask for a one-hit kill skill or a skill for infinite money. She thought again about what a naturally disrespectful attitude this was. The conversation with Osamu Higanbana was complete. Messiah told him she would now transfer him. Osamu asked in confusion how she knew his name. Messiah declared that for someone with such an utterly exhausted face, she would grant him an auto skill. Osamu protested loudly that he was born with this face. The scene shifted to a vast prairie field, labeled as level 50. The surroundings looked a lot like the game Osamu used to play. He wondered if he had just spawned somewhere else, or if this was still just a dream. He thought this had to be a dream, but concluded that this dream was getting pretty hectic. He saw Messiah from earlier and recalled that her name was Messiah. Messiah was leaning over Osamu. Suddenly, there was a slapping sound as she struck him. Messiah reacted with shock, exclaiming in surprise. She panicked and asked if something was attacking her. She questioned what the hell this thing was. Osamu thought to himself that a goddess was explaining stuff while sitting on the ground, and that she didn't have an ounce of dignity. Messiah called out to him and explained that he had come to this world because he had a mission to fulfill. Osamu asked what she meant by a mission. He questioned if it was like slaying monsters or taking quests like in that game. He muttered that it sounded like a pain. Messiah exclaimed that good heavens, he had been like this for a while now. She said, What sounded like a pain was that thing charging at them. Osamu replied that he was exhausted and wanted to rest. A massive boar-like monster charged toward them. Masaya explained that the monster had a vicious temper and was the kind of pain that charged straight ahead without stopping until it dropped dead. Osamu recognized it as a golem bursty and thought he had seen this thing in a game before. Masaya told Osamu that it was attacking them and urged him to run away. Osamu's body suddenly moved on its own, and he wondered why. Images flashed through his mind of Yamada asking him to help. A system notification appeared announcing that the auto skill was activating. Osamu's body moved automatically without his control, dodging and attacking. The auto skill fully activated. The monster was struck by an automatic attack. Osamu's body continued fighting entirely on its own. Even though he wasn't doing anything, the attacks kept happening all on their own. Masaya watched with excitement. After the battle ended, Osamu looked at his hands in disbelief. His auto skill had actually activated. He wondered if he just did that. Masaya explained these were attacks from the purgatory of the fire element and hidden crest of the water element. She told him these were attacks he could trigger as part of the initial state of his auto skill. Osamu found it unbelievable. He thought this had to be some weird dream. He thought he just arrived at a meadow when all of a sudden he took down an enemy with some power he didn't even understand. But for the first time in forever, he felt like he was actually sleeping deeply. Masaya rushed to catch the collapsing Osamu. Her knees hurt from the impact. She told him she would get one ready for him, so he should just wait for her. She said she rushed to catch him, and now they were in this position. She announced she would use her building skill. A cabin structure appeared, built by Masaya's skill. Osamu awoke inside and asked where he was. Masaya explained this was the cabin she built with her skill. She mentioned that back then she just jumped in without thinking. Since it was his first time using his power, he pretty much passed out and fell asleep. Osamu suddenly noticed his body was glowing. A notification appeared showing he had leveled up. Masaya was excited and told him he just leveled up. Osamu realized this was reality and that, after all, this wasn't a dream. Masaya confirmed he was correct and that he had been brought to this world because he had a mission to fulfill. Osamu asked Masaya who exactly she was and what his mission was in this world. Masaya told him she already explained this and reminded him she was a goddess. She said she still couldn't tell him the reason he was brought to this world, but there should be a clue in Jarvis, the Iron City they were heading to right now. Osamu acknowledged this information. Masaya commented that having a mission sounded like a total hassle. Osamu reflected that now he actually had the power to save someone, and if there was anything he could do in this world, he wanted to try. Masaya was truly surprised that he had saved her. She acknowledged that even though he was such a lazy bum who didn't even know how to use his auto skill, he had helped. Osamu replied that he had gotten kind of curious. That was all. Masaya thanked Satoru warmly. Osamu reflected on how long it had been since someone last thanked him. Masaya announced they were already on their way to Jarvis. Osamu asked how exactly they were supposed to get to this Jarvis place. A rumbling sound occurred. Suddenly, the entire house began moving on its own. Osamu panicked and asked what the heck was going on. Masaya explained this was part of his auto skill too. The house continued moving across the landscape on its own. Satoru was shocked to see the whole structure in motion. Masaya was thrilled and declared this was so exciting. She told him that until the day he, the ultimate lazy hero, saved the world, she would guide him every step of the way. Satoru reflected on his situation. He thought about how he looked like he had been reincarnated into a world that was pretty much identical to the game Sacrifice Online, a massively successful global MMORPG. He wasn't even sure if he actually died in the first place. He had gotten a bunch of stuff as reincarnation perks, and one of them was auto skill. Against any monster detected within a 5-meter radius around him, the skill automatically selected and cast the most effective spell. As a side note, the starting magic was surprisingly powerful. Satoru received the auto mode as a handy system when the player was AFK and made for grinding XP by taking down weak monsters. Apparently, in this world, it was treated as a full-blown skill, or for farming items with super low drop rates. He figured the effects for this skill were pretty good from the start. The second thing that caught his attention was when he checked his stats and saw something shocking. He was already at level 40 and had no idea when that happened at all. Level 40 was something that normally takes a full week of non-stop grinding, and he hit it in just a few hours. Masaya served him food. She called him and said he must be starving after using his skills in his sleep. She was Masaya, the goddess who was guiding him. Satoru thought to himself that apparently she knows what his role in this world is, but for some reason, she wouldn't tell him. And one thing that he did not want to know was the taste of that home-cooked meal brought by Masaya, which was 1 degree away from turning black. She practically pushed him to eat it and asked, wasn't it delicious? He just chugged it down somehow and recalled that all he knew about Masaya was that she could use a mysterious skill, crafting. Masaya was glad when he praised her food, while tolerating the bitterness somehow. And for now, Satoru doesn't think she was a bad person by looks of it, and he could just learn more about her while adventuring with her. He had to admit she was cute though. The first town they were heading to today was named Jarvis. He remembered it was a place that prospered through mining. Satoru was looking forward to seeing that amazing place with his own eyes. But when they arrived at Jarvis, the city where fire and iron once burned through the night was no different from ruins. He looked around the almost dead place, then noticed Messiah was pulling some board from the rubble. He called her out and asked if this town was really Jarvis, or if they had arrived at the wrong place. Messiah was astounded by his question, and with some anger and frustration, she responded that they were really in Jarvis Town. She got the board here, which should be at the entrance. However, now the place was all in ruins, and she explained that until just a few years ago, Jarvis was thriving thanks to weapon production using iron from its mines. But now, there wasn't even a trace of that left. The air was full of dust, and everything looked pretty run down. Satoru thought to himself that things aren't exactly like in the game, and wondered if there was really a reason why he was brought to this world. They somehow came across a shop that was open. Messiah suggested they should check it out and find out what happened to this town. Satoru agreed, and as they entered, inside the shop, tons of weapons were displayed. Satoru thought to himself, this place feels completely different from the rest of the city. Almost hard to admit the outside of this place was in ruins. Messiah told Satoru they should get some weapons here, since he needs something to fight with other than just relying on his auto skill. And while at it, he should also change those weird clothes of his, which didn't seem suitable for combat. Then a blacksmith spoke up, wondering what she called weird. He added his surprise to see there were still people who would come to a place like this. He apologized for speaking weirdly and claimed it's just hard to see anyone come here to buy anything. He approached them, and Messiah asked if he was the owner of this shop. The blacksmith replied he could hardly call himself the owner or runner of this place anymore, since they were about to close because of that thing, which started rampaging out here in this town one day. Satoru questioned if whatever that thing was, the reason why this town was ruined. The blacksmith replied that one day, a labor robot went out of control, and it suddenly turned into a boss monster and kept attacking people around it. Since then, everyone's jobs and dreams were taken away, and now it has become common for people to leave this town one by one every day. Messiah observed some people outside and realized that there were still people who chose to stay. The blacksmith commented they were just stubborn-born fools like himself who couldn't bring themselves to abandon this city. Satoru found this situation to be such a pain, and he had some thoughts. Messiah asked him, "What's up?" Out of nowhere, he asked the blacksmith if the mine of this town was still accessible. The blacksmith was surprised by the odd question and asked what he intended to do with it. Satoru declared confidently that he'd take down the monster, which left the blacksmith shocked, and he told him not to make something so ridiculous sound so easy. Satoru then asked Messiah if he had a role to play in this world. She confirmed he did. Then Satoru began reflecting on the nature of the world. He thought to himself that originally, this game was an open world type where players just grind levels non-stop to take on ever stronger monsters. A completely player-driven world. He continued, thinking that ever since he came to this world for the first time in ages, he'd been able to do something for someone else's sake. If his role after reincarnating was to take down monsters, then he was done living the boring way and do whatever he wanted to, and make sure he doesn't have any regrets in this life. In this world, he wanted to do something to save someone. Messiah seemed to have gained hope from his words, whereas the blacksmith could not help but ask how he was planning to do that in those weird clothes. Satoru yelled back that it was rude to say, and everyone was getting on his nerves in this world, pointing out his cool outfit as weird. Later, Satoru made his way to the mine, which has now become a coal mine dungeon, Bifrost. There was a sign marking the entrance with a no entry warning, and some monsters were inside right near the entrance gate. But all of a sudden, the monster was killed by one of the random attacks from Satoru's auto skill, and he entered the dungeon nonchalantly with Messiah. He was thankful to that blacksmith for giving good directions. Then Messiah asked him how come his level kept on rising so quickly, and she observed that Satoru didn't even react when he leveled up anymore. Messiah remarked he was a strange guy. He acted like everything around him was a pain, but then he first helped her in the forest, and now he was trying to save Jarvis Town. She looked at him just standing there and told him, with a smile, she would be counting on him. Satoru smiled and nodded with a yes. Then, out of curiosity, he asked her about the crafting skill she used for construction earlier. She agreed she could handle crafting parts for them with her skill, but when he asked if she could fight monsters as well, Messiah replied, instantly, there was no way she could. Combat was impossible for her. She could just provide him support from the back, so he would have to protect her. Satoru and Messiah proceeded further inside the dungeon. Then he heard a metallic sound coming from ahead. As they got a little closer, he suddenly sensed something was there and went further with caution. until he saw an elf girl sitting on the ground in fear, and her magic staff had fallen on the ground. Satoru observed her condition, while Messiah went to ask the little elf what she was doing in a place like this. But all of a sudden, the elf girl took shelter behind Satoru and apologized for her behavior, confessing she was shy around people. Messiah can't help but try to make sense of this situation. She asked Satoru why he was so calm about this. The elf girl then introduced herself as Reese, and after learning each other's names, Reese claimed she was living inside this cave because she was not good with people. Satoru thought this was a bit too much for being shy, but Reese can't help it, because due to some circumstances, she was exiled from her elf village, and the rest was clear. She had been using this place as a hideout. Reese added, even though she was this shy, the people of Jarvis Town were really kind to her, and this time, she wanted to be the one to save the city. Messiah asked further what she meant. Then, Reese told her about the story she heard when she was a child, saying, when they find themselves in trouble, the saint would come to save them. So, Reese believed if she kept praying here, the saint would arrive and save Jarvis Town. Satoru didn't expect there were not just goddesses, but saints as well in this world. But more importantly, he asked Reese if she wanted to save it, she should have tried possible ways she could herself deal with this situation, like asking for help. And either way, he was here to defeat that monster and take over this mine. Reese was moved upon hearing that, and she offered to show them the location of the boss monster. She let them know she was not good at magic, so she won't be of any use in battle. Satoru didn't think that was something to be said with pride, and while they were talking, Messiah heard something approaching, and her expression turned into fear when she saw something. She told them it looks like they won't need to find the boss monster, since the thing has come by itself. Satoru saw the large robot with drills in its hands and wheels at its feet. The robot's size was much larger than he expected. He and others were confused by what to do now, and he did not consider what he would do if the monster was too big. He just thought, since people called it a labor robot, it would be around his size or smaller. The robo attacked them with running drill arms out of the blue, and they somehow managed to get out of its way by jumping away. Satoru asked the two if they were okay. After confirming they were, he turned to the monster and observed that Robo's arms were pretty strong. They were actually attacked by Satoru's auto skill earlier, but it could only deflect the attack, not block or counter it. So, Satoru didn't think he could do anything except dodging for now. He kept pressing his head to come up with something. Then Messiah called him out and said she would grant him a buff, which would increase the power of his skill 3 times. Satoru needed just this, and she told him to try attacking that thing one more time. Satoru was feeling better and stronger, and he was glad that he was not alone anymore. This power boost felt like he was being embraced, and now, when the monster attacked him again, Satoru directed his auto skill attacks at will and tried aiming for the monster's center parts. The attack made a louder noise and damage, but they were shocked that it was not working. Satoru quickly moved to the side to dodge the incoming attack, and now he had to deal with that thick armor somehow. He needed to find that thing's weakness somehow. Right then, Reese recalled something and told him to get right below that monster. He was confused. Then she explained the armor below the monster was thinner, so an attack from below would definitely deal much more damage. Messiah was startled by this idea, and she was worried because this was too dangerous. To jump right below the enemy's feet, he might get crushed before getting under the monster. But to her surprise, Satoru already began running towards the monster, and he figured he didn't have time to hesitate and had to try this. He prepared to jump while the other two were worried sick about him. Satoru managed to reach the monster's bottom by jumping and sliding in between its feet. Messiah understood now he was stronger than before after leveling up, and she almost forgot about his rapid growth, which leaves her surprised every time. Satoru then attacked from below the monster, and this time, his attacks landed many critical hits around the monster's body. And after taking a dozen hits, the monster seemed to shut down and muttered in a robotic voice that the damage received was too high, and it would have to shut down. Satoru and others were relieved as they saw the monster collapse in front of them, and Satoru was amazed that he managed to defeat it with the power of his allies. Reese came running to him, crying, and worried sick if he was okay. She can't thank him enough for saving the town by defeating that monster. Messiah also reminded him she knew he would do it. That's why she told him she would count on him. Satoru thought to himself that getting a compliment at his age wasn't that bad, and the three stood there happily after things were better now. The scene then shifted to show Frisia, the city of flowers. The beautiful cityscape spread across the landscape with distinctive architecture and flower-filled streets. Inside what appeared to be a church, a figure stood before a religious image. He thought they had to find him. A mysterious woman appeared with deep concern on her face. She warned that if this keeps going, the world will be destroyed if she fails to find their savior. After collecting the robot's core, the three exited the mines and were on their way back to Jarvis Town. Messiah noticed Satoru was hurt in the arm, to which he replied, It was just grazed a little during the fight. He didn't really realize it when he got injured, probably due to an adrenaline rush. The pain kicked in later when he relaxed. Satoru asked Messiah to heal him, since she must have healing skills as a goddess, but she replied she was not powerful enough to use everything. Reese got something in mind and called out the other two, saying she might be able to heal him. Satoru recalled elves were able to use magic in the games as well, so she must be right. And if Reese could really use healing magic, it would be great to have her. But to his surprise, she began mixing the herbs found around the forest to make medicine. This left both Messiah and Satoru perplexed, while she kept grinding herbs and gave off an awkward smile of hard work. Once done, she asked Satoru to put this medicine on the injured spot. It should be better in a few days. Satoru asked her why she couldn't just use healing magic. Reese replied she was not good at magic at all. She just got tons of mana, but can't use magic at all despite that. Satoru, you can't believe someone with so much mana could be this useless. And he recalled the place where Reese lived in the cave also had those items for manual survival without relying on magic. He was a bit confused, since these things were not in the game, making him doubt if he was in the same world as the game. Either way, he thanked Reese for the help, and they decided to continue back to the town. On their way, Satoru saw a kid collecting herbs in a basket. He approached the kid and asked about what he was doing. The kid got scared of him and questioned if he came out of the mine. Satoru nodded with a yes. Then the kid mentioned hearing a rumor that ghosts show up around this mine. The kid thought he must be a ghost. Satoru asked what he was talking about. Then the kid just attacked him in the balls out of self-defense, although our poor guy had to take the hit for no reason. Later, when they cleared the kid's misunderstanding, the kid apologized for mistaking them for ghosts. Satoru was still suffering from the hit in the balls. Then the kid told him he was really amazing to be strong enough to defeat that crazy robot. He had never seen anyone go in and come back in one piece. Satoru recalled the kid's name was Yuki. Then Yuki said his little sister was hungry and there was nothing to eat at home. So he came here to gather some herbs for her to eat. Reese looked at the herbs he collected and told him some of the herbs in them were poisonous, so he'd better avoid those ones. She felt bad for the town's people, since even after defeating the monster, the people still had to struggle a lot for everything to turn back to normal. Satoru wondered if there was anything more he could do. Then the system notification popped up and informed him of the level up after defeating the robot. Satoru realized the experience gained must be so huge the notification was delayed. After he looked at his stats, he was left amazed. Messiah asked him if he leveled up again. He confirmed and added he also unlocked a new skill, auto crop farming. Messiah and Reese were astonished by this new skill, since it matched their current need for farming and growing food for people. Messiah looked at him with a smirk. Then he asked her, annoyed, what she was looking at. She turned her head away, knowing he would surely help people, even if he spoke in a cold voice. Reese then called out to Satoru and told him it was amazing timing he got this skill, and she hugged him, happy that they could help people with it. Satoru could not ignore that bust and got flustered, then told her to give him some space. She was too close. Yuki in the back saw Messiah being nervous and told her not to get jealous. After that, they returned to town and talked with the blacksmith to show them a piece of land for farming. He brought them to the city's largest potato field, but he wondered what he was going to do this time. He could see that Satoru seemed pretty serious about something. He can't help but thank him a lot for saving the town from that robot, which already made him their savior. Satoru told the old man to buzz off. His beard was hurting him. Reese then asked Satoru if he could really till the field in its current situation, since it seemed devastated. Satoru was a bit nervous, but he wouldn't know unless he tried it. So he activated his auto farming skill, and the auto attacks turned towards the ground and started tilling it around him. The ground was restored to better condition within seconds. Within minutes, sown seeds had already sprouted from the ground as new plants. Satoru was happy it worked out pretty well, and Reese and Messiah looked after him, finding it hard to believe all of this was done by just one skill. They decided to tell everyone in the village about this, and while they were gone, the blacksmith remained behind to confirm with his eyes this was really happening. Satoru assured him it was indeed real, and he hoped this would bring people back to Jarvis. Blacksmith was certain it would, although he recalled a sad memory of his past, when his son mentioned to him that people of the town were leaving one after another. So, even if the father kept forging more weapons, there wouldn't be anyone left to use them. The blacksmith knows it, but even so, he believed once the fire goes out, it would all be over for them. He wants to keep it active because his son's going to take over this shop one day. But his son didn't seem that confident in this town's future, so he apologized to his father and left like the others. The blacksmith had to witness his son leaving. As more people left soon after, the town lost its energy and everything went quiet. Now, the blacksmith could finally see some hope for this town, and it was all thanks to this brat who talks rough on the outside, but turns out he was a really kind guy on the inside. It was like hope had just poked its head up out of the soil for this town. The next day, All the crops sowed by Satoru were already grown mature enough to be harvested. People and kids from the town were all cheerful as they helped in harvesting. Yuki came to express his surprise to Big Bro and thanked him, having many potatoes in his hands. Satoru was glad the kid was energetic now, and Yuki added his sister could finally eat to her heart's content. His sister was playing with Reese, and she came to thank Satoru, who made it all possible. Satoru mentioned it could not have been done with just his power. Everyone worked hard for this, and Reese had been worried the most about everyone in Jarvistown. The girl turned to Reese and thanked her for caring. Reese was moved upon hearing thanks and accepted the little one's gratitude. Satoru smiled. Then he looked over to Messiah, who was harvesting potatoes along with other kids. She looked like she was having fun, and Satoru thought even though she was a goddess, she looked just like an ordinary girl having fun right now. He told her she had harvested a lot on her own. She asked him to come and help out as well. They got so many potatoes to feed other people. He told her she had some dirt on her nose, and Messiah got nervous and tried to remove it. He told her it was the other way, and unable to do it herself, she asked Satoru to get it off for her. Satoru was mesmerized by her beauty from this close, and nervously, he quickly cleaned the dirt with his elbow while maintaining some distance. She asked him what kind of way was this to help. Then Reese asked Messiah to come and check out potatoes in her spot. Messiah quickly went over to her, while Satoru calmed his thoughts. Our guy had zero resistance to girls, especially when they were goddess-level pretty like Messiah. He was glad as the harvesting work was almost done, but a mysterious girl stood behind him, as if she wanted to meet him. Satoru wondered if they would be able to cook all these potatoes properly, since eating them steamed was boring. It would cause problems if done for everyone, considering there were no necessary preparations done. Then the girl standing behind him approached and called him out, offering to cook whatever he wanted, since she had a cooking skill. Satoru was left speechless by a beautiful girl approaching him out of nowhere, and he wondered who this girl was, and how the hell could anyone be this cute? He asked her if she could make potato chips. She recalled it was a snack, so she had an idea what he needed. She activated her cooking skill, and the potatoes began to glow brightly with magic. In a few moments, they turned into nice, bright, and crispy potato chips. They immediately caught Satoru's attention, and so did the kids who noticed the chips and wanted to try them out of curiosity. The girl told them these chips were good so they could try them out. The kids took the chips and ate them. They were really yummy. She then offered the chips to Satoru. He excitedly accepted them and couldn't wait to dive right in. He had been eating these snacks since forever, since this world doesn't have a convenience store where he could get snacks. The girl wondered what he meant by convenience store, but either way, she was glad he liked them. She removed her hood, as she revealed that she came here to meet him actually, and to be more precise, to warn him that if he stayed close to Messiah, he was gonna die. Satoru was left puzzled by that statement, while the blonde girl asked him, didn't Messiah walk up to him claiming to be a goddess? Satoru recalled that was exactly how it happened, and Messiah claimed to have come to this world to fulfill a certain mission. Satoru asked the blonde girl how she knew that, to which she replied it was natural for her to know, since she was a saint after all, and was guided here by God. She mentioned that Messiah's true nature was actually of a former goddess, who was now a grim reaper. This revelation left Satoru confused, wondering what to believe, and Messiah also noticed his worries from there. After a while, Satoru went inside his house, and Reese checked the house and complimented it as a beautiful home. And to think it also moves was just amazing. She then asked Satoru who might be that blonde girl who was his guest right now. The blonde drank some tea offered to her, and turned to introduce herself as Fortuna, a saint from the flower capital, Frisia. Reese remarked how she always wanted to meet a saint, and she was sure the saint would now save Jarvis. Fortuna nodded she would indeed, since the god gave her an oracle to guide the savior who would rescue the world, and that savior was none other than Satoru. Fortuna was also told by the god that Messiah was a grim reaper. Messiah can't smile after being called that. Satoru asked Fortuna to wait before accusing her, and asked just what exactly was a grim reaper. From what he knows, Messiah was the goddess who was supposed to guide him. And now Fortuna here just showed up out of nowhere and claimed he would die if things stayed like that. He never came across a dilemma like this in the game. Then Fortuna decided to start by explaining how this world works. It all began millions of years ago, when the three gods, Arcturus, Kaitos, and Fortune, created a world like a paradise. But then, the demon king of death, Zoltex, suddenly appeared and used the curse of death to drag the world into the darkness. And now, when someone is afflicted by this unknown curse of death, monsters become far more violent and stronger, starting a never-ending rampage, whereas people who get affected by this curse lose their will to live and eventually die. Satoru didn't understand why this was happening, and what exactly was this curse of death. Fortuna stated they don't know much about it either, and were currently investigating it. Even her family was struck by this curse of death and was bedridden right now, while she could not do anything for them. Now, in the middle of this crisis, their only hope in this world was Satoru. Satoru thought about everything and processed it in his mind. Fortuna seemed to know he was not from this world. Messiah also came to him and said he had a role to play. So, from their words, it does not look like those two were saying different things to him for now. Fortuna continued that now, instead of Messiah, who would lead to his death, she would take over the role of guiding Satoru. Satoru looked at her for a moment, then he turned to Messiah to ask her about the time when she said that she was a goddess. Messiah remained silent for a moment before answering that she could not tell him everything yet, but she wanted him to believe in her and that she would never let Satoru die. Her resolute eyes sent him a clear message, and he could see trust in her eyes. But Fortuna refused to fall for that and told Satoru not to be deceived by words of a grim reaper. It was Fortuna's job to guide him, so he better come with her to Frisia. Satoru got confused by the pressure from her. Then, Messiah spoke up that Fortuna was nobody to decide things on her own. She didn't even know yet how lazy Satoru was. The moment one takes their eyes off him, he would fall asleep instantly. He won't bother cooking his meals, and he was a chronic bath skipper who smells often. Satoru yelled at her not to bring up those things right now. Then, both of the girls called out for him and asked him to choose which one of them he trusts more. Satoru was now confused whom to choose from, but seriously, he didn't want to go with one party. Fortuna and Messiah decided to settle the matter by force. Messiah joked that if Fortuna can't protect Satoru when it really counts, the world would end before she could even guide him. Fortuna got pissed off by that remark and prepared to throw a punch, shouting she would never put Satoru in danger. Satoru was confused. Were saints really supposed to be ready to throw punches anytime? Reese was worried about Messiah, but to their surprise, Messiah already had a plan in mind to counter, and she just materialized a chair with her crafting skill to block the punch. Satoru could not believe she used craft just to block a punch with a chair, a pretty stupid use for a useful skill. Messiah stated if anyone dares to raise a lion, they ought to be ready to push it off a cliff sometimes. She wanted Satoru to level up quickly before it's too late. Saint Fortuna got annoyed by her words and commented that now Messiah was showing her true colors, meaning she must be transforming into a grim reaper as time passes for real. Both of them began fighting with everything they got, and Reese was being thrown around the house by the impact of their fight. She yelled they would destroy the house at this rate, but even so, both of them didn't care and were about to attack once more. But then, Satoru got in the middle of them and stared both the saint and goddess in the eyes to stop them and knock it off already. However, he ended up unleashing his auto skill inside the house himself and dealt the final blow to the house. Outside, the weather was clear, but the townspeople were confused and worried after seeing Satoru's house in a rundown condition. It made them wonder what the hell happened to it. He then saw Satoru scolding Messiah and Fortuna for wrecking the house because of their carelessness. Reese reminded him he was the one who dealt the final blow and finished his own house. Fortuna smiled and apologized to him for letting her desires get the better of her, and admitted she was a failure of a saint for losing her temper. But she just wanted to save her family, because in Frisia, there was someone named Mictran who was researching the curse of death. Satoru and Messiah listened to her as she requested Satoru to come to her city and meet Mictran first. Satoru recalled today was the first time he even met Fortuna, so he doesn't know for sure what kind of person she was. But even so, he could understand that desire to save someone. Then the blacksmith asked him what he was doing out here. Satoru listened, as the guy said he brought something good for him. Satoru followed him to see what it was, only to find some special clothes and gear prepared by the blacksmith. Satoru was nervous upon seeing them, and Messiah was happy for him. The blacksmith then stood politely in front of him and said it didn't sit right with him to see their savior walk around in those weird rags without having any proper shield or a sword. So, he wanted Satoru to accept these as his way of thanking him for saving Jarvis. Satoru was shy, and he tried to state he can't accept something this expensive. Then Messiah patted his back and said he was already their hero, who saved their lives. So, he should stand tall and accept their gratitude. Satoru understood her words and saw her getting along with other villagers. She seemed very happy as well. He wanted to keep these days continuing and believe only in things he sees with his own eyes. The next day, he informed the villagers he would have to leave now. The blacksmith complimented him for looking really good in those clothes. Satoru smiled as he thanked him. Right then, the little kid came and hugged Satoru while crying out loud, saying he should live there in Jarvis. It would make everyone feel safer if he stayed. Satoru looked at the kid and assured him he felt happy that he felt that way. But if there were any people out there who were in trouble, just like here in Jarvis, he wanted to go and help them out. After saying that, he patted the kids' heads. Messiah said heading for Frisia was fine, but she wasn't okay with Fortuna coming along as well. Reese asked Fortuna what kind of place was Frisia. She recalled it was near an elf village, but she had never actually been there. Fortuna thought about it and said it was one of the 17 Holy Lands, which was also the capital founded by the divine king, Arcturus. It was lively, and during the Saints' festival, the whole city was buzzing with people. While they were talking, Satoru was still sleeping, so Fortuna was going to wake him up. Messiah reminded her what she said about how he always sleeps a lot. Messiah then shifted to the flower capital, Frisia. Satoru thought that, unlike Jarvis, this place was really bustling with people. The scene was really beautiful. He asked Reese if this was her first time here as well. She replied with a yes. Messiah reminded them they already talked about that part. Fortuna suggested they should head to the guild first. Mictran should be back by now with the results of the investigation. Satoru mentioned Fortuna seemed unusually energetic, or they could say happy. Messiah said this was obvious since it was her hometown. Reese asked if it was possible that Fortuna might be waiting for someone very special. Satoru gave a plain reaction. Reese was expecting more than that. She pointed out what she meant, that Fortuna and Mictran might have a special relationship just like Satoru Messiah. They replied with the no way. Messiah straight up declared that someone this sloppy can't be her type at all. Reese asked if that was really the case since they have been together since the moment they met and they even live in the same house. Messiah said it was not like that at all and they just ran into each other on the road. That's all. Reese doesn't know how to interpret that. She understood a little and apologized for jumping to conclusions, although Messiah seemed a little bit flustered about it. They arrived at the guild. Fortuna was shocked to hear that 7 days ago, Mictran did enter the undersea ruins to investigate the curse of death, but he still hasn't returned. There were also reports of monsters appearing there, so they fear he might be in need of rescue. Fortuna found it hard to believe that someone as strong as him would get into any trouble. Messiah observed her expression. Satoru could also see her worried face and understand that he was really someone important to Fortuna. It might just be Reese's intuition, but still, there was a chance to wait until he would come back on his own. But if that cause of death was not solved quickly, it would put Fortuna's family life in more danger. Messiah just had to look at his face once and get it that he was going to go no matter what anyone says. She suggested going along with him as well, since he would need her power too. Reese also raised her hand and said she also knows what he was thinking too. Satoru raised his hand in some stress. Fortuna looked at him as he spoke up that it would be faster if they go and get Mictran themselves, so he was planning to head out already. Fortuna was worried. If the monster reports were true, then they might be putting Satoru in danger. But even so, she wanted to request and thank him at the same time for helping her. She bowed down and requested him to lend his strength just this once. Satoru and others were happy, after which they headed to the undersea ruins. The first floor of these ruins was all dry, but Satoru didn't understand why the rest of these ruins were under the sea, and why there was a temple built on the water surface in the first place. Fortuna didn't know the details either. They just needed to wait until the investigation results were concluded. The deeper parts of the temple had deteriorated and flooded. They had to wait for Mictran to return, since his special abilities allowed him to go inside undersea ruins. Messiah asked just who this Mictran was. Anyway, Fortuna replied he was an investigator of forbidden curses attached to the Holy Office. He was also a specialist whose job was to research and unravel things even saints could not heal. And he was also her brother. Only she and her brother were left unharmed by this curse. Satoru and others were shocked upon hearing that because they were convinced Mictran was her lover. Messiah pointed out Fortuna did give off that doting little sister vibe. Reese was certain Fortuna must be worried about her big brother being in such a dangerous place. Satoru told her she should have stayed behind if she had that much on her mind. She was no help at all in the mines either, to which Reese replied she could be useful for something such as, but before she could finish her sentence, she tripped on something and fell down. Satoru asked if she was okay. She had fallen into water and said she fell down here to warn them about the seawater. Satoru vaguely thanked her for the help. However, they were unaware of the incoming threat, and suddenly, Reese was pulled deeper into the water by a monster. Satoru and others got alerted, and they knew they must go after her fast. But all this seawater was trouble for them. Then Messiah cast a spell, Maiden of the Lake, which formed a barrier around Satoru and Fortuna. He noticed the water around him was getting pushed away. Then Messiah explained that she granted them a skill that repels water. She reminded them what she said, that she would surely be helpful. Fortuna didn't seem to like it, but they had to move quickly and jumped into the water. Satoru ran around the undersea ruins to look for Reese, until he found the octopus monster that caught Reese and pulled her into the water. Satoru realized this devil was the Kraken from the game. Messiah then cast the spell on Reese as well, making her able to breathe, after which she told everyone to be careful. These attacks were very fast, and they got to know it firsthand when the Kraken attacked them. Satoru's auto skill activated and blocked the Kraken's attacks. Despite them being fast, he was able to deflect them all. Fortuna found it amazing that despite there being so many tentacles, he was blocking them all. But Satoru mentioned there were too many of them, so they needed to circle around and hit the main body of the monster. Messiah then cast a support skill to buff their strength. Fortuna asked why she was casting it on her as well. Messiah simply replied, Fortuna was a person who was trying to save someone important to her, so she should hurry up and smash that crazy Kraken or whatever. Fortuna was moved by her words, but she told her not to get full of herself. She would still not want to listen to anything a Grim Reaper says. She turned to Satoru for help, suggesting that she would land a strike, while he needed to hold out just a little longer. After saying that, she ran around the Kraken, and when she was close enough, she jumped and launched her supreme sky-breaking kick. She landed a major blow to the Kraken and sent it flying. The Kraken hit the wall, and Satoru thought they got it. Messiah went to check if Reese was okay. Satoru commented it was easier than expected, but Messiah reminded him he was struggling against it not long ago. She added, it was thanks to Fortuna that they were able to defeat that thing. Fortuna smiled upon being praised, but Satoru didn't like how he was not praised at all by her and called her dishonest. Reese reminded them they needed to go and find Fortuna's brother. As they were about to leave to look for Mictran, the Kraken sneakily attacked Satoru from behind. Messiah ran over to him and shouted his name to alert him. However, she ended up taking the hit, which was supposed to be for Satoru, upon her own body. She suffered a severe wound in front of his eyes, while Fortuna and Satoru could only look at her helplessly. Messiah somehow remained standing, and Satoru looked at her as she collapsed with a painful expression. He ran over to Messiah and asked her why she was protecting him. Osamu was more frustrated over the part that his auto skill did not activate. He wondered if he ran out of mana. If Messiah did not regain consciousness, it would be all his fault for letting his guard down and resulting in her death. He kept calling her name, but the Kraken didn't wait for him to focus on the fight and launched another tentacle attack at Satoru. Satoru saw it reaching almost his eyes, and the next moment there was a loud thud sound. Satoru opened his eyes and realized he was safe. Apparently, someone had come to their rescue and saved them. Satoru looked at the guy from the back and wondered who he was. And did he just parry the Kraken's attack all by himself to save them? While he kept looking at the blonde man, the guy asked him if he was okay. Satoru was kinda overwhelmed to respond right away. Then, Fortuna spoke up and called out the guy in front as her big brother. Reese understood it meant this man was Mictran, and Fortuna was really happy to see that he was safe. Mictran asked her why she was down here, to which she replied that she came looking for him, and more importantly, she asked him to follow her as she guided him to Messiah. She requested her brother to heal her. Mictran used a glorious healing spell to recover Messiah's wounds, and Satoru kept observing from the side. He could see Messiah's complexion got better after being healed, after which he thanked Mictran for his help. Mictran said he just did a simple treatment, so they need to let her rest and recover a bit until she wakes up. Satoru was nervous because Mictran was strong enough to defeat that Kraken in one blow, and on top of that, he even possessed healing skills. Satoru asked him just who he was, which startled Mictran a bit to be asked out just like that. He replied he was just an ordinary person who happens to have skills. Satoru replied that everyone around him had been a goddess who turned Grim Reaper, then an elf, then a saint, so he wondered who it was this time. Mictran asked Satoru instead if he was the savior Fortuna was looking for. He kind of felt embarrassed to say he was the savior, so he just went with his name as an introduction. Fortuna stated that Satoru came all this way for her sake, and because he was also worried about her brother. And he was also the kind of person befitting a savior who can't leave someone in trouble alone. She turned to Satoru to ask if it was right. He replied that was way too much credit for him. Fortuna's brother did not seem pleased to see they were close, and he challenged him to a duel right away if he wanted to marry his sister. Satoru replied it was not like that. Reese came forward saying he was right. Satoru already has Messiah by his side, but she would not mind seeing a love triangle. Satoru pointed out Reese was enjoying this too much, and at the same time, Messiah woke up and asked what happened to her. She saw Reese suggesting if she should join and make it a square. Sato yelled at her to be quiet, while Fortuna was being asked by her brother not to fall for men like that. Messiah was even more confused than when she was unconscious, struggling to make sense of all this. After that, they returned to the city, and Messiah understood the situation by listening to them, and Mictran healed her. Mictran asked her how she was feeling now, to which she replied she was feeling fine thanks to him. Satoru asked Mictran if he found any clues at the ruins. Mictran nodded that he did find something. There were records that the undersea ruins were built to manage the power of the Grim Reaper, but now the balance between life and death has collapsed, and the world is heading towards destruction. Messiah was confused after hearing about managing the power of the Grim Reaper. Mictran added that the Kraken they saw earlier had also been involved by this curse of death, and this god was growing stronger and now even transforming goddesses into Grim Reapers. And so, he also found a stone monument deep underground in the undersea ruins, which seems to be centuries old. Mictran never thought he would get to see such a legendary level ruin with his own eyes. And more surprisingly, the thing carved on this monument was the Grim Reaper management system. However, during his research, he got so lost that he was chased by a Kraken. Satoru and Reese understood he was a history lover. Fortuna could not defend her brother from that and admitted he was the kind to lose his sight of his surroundings sometimes. Satoru was worried about Messiah, who had been quiet ever since they exited the ruins. He asked her if she was okay. She replied with a sorry and said she was not quite feeling herself and needed to get some air. As she left, Fortuna was also worried, so she asked Satoru to go and check on her. She knows she was harsh with Messiah, thinking she was a Grim Reaper, but now she understands Messiah was not actually a bad person, and she herself must not be able to accept that she was transforming from a goddess into a Grim Reaper. This means she was also a victim of this. Satoru went outside only to find Messiah crying alone. She stated that feeling this sad was what becoming a Grim Reaper feels like. Satoru looked at her quietly for a moment and said he wasn't sure he should say it, but Messiah didn't really give that much of a goddess vibe from the start. She yelled that it was rude, but he kept pointing out more stuff like how she was careless, didn't really care where she was sitting or standing, and did not have any sparkly goddess aura. Messiah got mad. Then he added one more thing, that it was Messiah who saved him, and that was something that an amazing goddess would do. In that moment, Messiah was the best goddess he could have asked for. Hearing this, Messiah felt better and closed her eyes. She claimed she only did what was natural, and since he was going to save this world, Satoru cannot die. She added that she was in the heavenly realm before coming here. She worked under the goddess Fortune, who was one of the 3 gods who created this world. One day, a goddess asked Messiah if she had heard about the Grim Reaper transformation. That was the first time she heard about the effects, which could make a goddess lose control of her powers and get cast down to the lower world where Grim Reapers were. Messiah thought that was impossible, and they were just legends. Her friend wondered what would happen when she became a Grim Reaper. They joked about it at first, until one day she happened to see a goddess feeling sick. Messiah asked her what happened and if she was okay. She also noticed she was acting strangely lately. The other goddess replied she had not noticed anything like that, but only a few weeks later, she became a Grim Reaper. She was then sealed by Goddess Fortune, after which, to stop the Grim Reaper transformation and to save the world, Fortune ordered Messiah to guide the Savior. Messiah was really afraid of becoming like that too, but more than that, she didn't want any more goddesses to go through the same thing. Satoru stated it was a coincidence that he also lost a colleague at a construction site. He thought from the bottom of his heart that he would never want to experience that pain of not being able to save someone again. If saving a person would lead to saving this world, Satoru was determined and chose to believe in Messiah. He does not care if she is a goddess or a Grim Reaper. She must be the one to guide him. As a similar person carrying the same pain as hers, he wanted to travel with her. Messiah asked if this was okay because once she becomes a Grim Reaper, she might not be able to help him anymore. Satoru figured it must have hurt and apologized for making her go through something so painful. He also added that his level went way up, above 700, and now he won't let his guard down like that ever again. So, he needs Messiah to believe in him as well. Messiah agreed to do that and said even if she becomes a Grim Reaper and pushes him off the cliff, she does not want him to hold it against her. Satoru replied it was fine by him, but he would take her down with him. Now back inside the guild, Fortuna was surprised as her brother said he found something. Mictran agreed and said he figured it out by deciphering the stone monument. He found a way to save this world from the curse of death. Messiah recalled a past memory where the goddess Fortune stated that in the Saints' Festival held in Frisia, the person who overcomes the trials held there would be granted the title of saint. And as for Irina, who has fallen to being a Grim Reaper previously, she has become a danger, one that only a saint could oppose. So, they must lead the saint and also find a savior for their world. Fortune brought out the goddess's book of reincarnation. Messiah wondered what kind of person would this summoned hero be, but the moment Fortune revealed she chose Satoru from Earth to be their savior, all the angels grew worried for the world. They don't think a person who got nothing to do in his life except working on some machine in a company all day would even be suitable to become the savior. Then Fortune said, this guy carries a deep karma, but to others, they could only think this Satoru seems to have only one karma, the karma of laziness. Now, the goddess Fortune had made the decision, and everyone had to go along with it. Fortune then cast a spell on Messiah to give her some memories and regrets of Satoru. After seeing these memories, she began to cry as she got an idea of what kind of person Satoru really was. Fortune smiled and told Messiah to be the one to lead Satoru. Fortune was sure Messiah could do it and sent her to the lower world with that belief. Now back in Frisia, the Saints' Festival was close. People were gladly helping in preparations, and inside a building. Satoru was under a lot of stress after learning the story of how he became a saint at this saint's festival as well, and then got summoned to save this world. Others confirmed it must have been like that, but like hell he was going to accept that. He recalled he just enjoying some games like he always does. He never thought of being dragged into saving another world shit like this. And even if they tell him all that, it was still a lot to process. Messiah and Fortuna were arguing that they don't have time to wait and need to raise Satoru's levels. Reese was all excited about seeing the Saints Festival. However, she was sad about not being able to participate because of being an outcast from the elf village. Satoru can't help her there. Then Mictran added that not just anyone could become a saint, which means Satoru must have the aptitude for it. And based on the results of the investigation at the undersea ruins, the world was in a critical situation right now. The ruins played the role of suppressing the Reaper's powers, but they would cease to function in a few years. If that happened, monsters would become frenzied, just like how the Kraken became a devil Kraken. And afterwards, all goddesses would likely become grim reapers as well. Satoru understood the seriousness of the situation. Then Fortuna asked, didn't they just find a way to save the world? Satoru asked if that was real, and asked why they should still participate in the Saints Festival then. Mictran got up and started walking towards a room. Fortuna knew something was off about it, but he signaled her to remain quiet. After he opened the doors, Satoru saw that inside the room, Fortuna's parents were lying down with disease. Satoru didn't need an explanation for what happened, since he already heard it from Fortuna when he met her. Fortuna's face went pale, and she sadly described that her parents have been in that state for almost a year. They were alive, probably thanks to her brother casting healing every now and then, but it was hard to say how long they have before passing. Messiah and others listened as Mictran spoke up that the condition to release their parents from the curse of death was to defeat 3 enemies. But with Satoru's current level, it was difficult to do so. Satoru gets it now. He needs to gain strength for all of this to resolve. He decided to do everything he could to become a saint and strong enough for their goal. Mictran added once he becomes a saint, Satoru would truly become the savior. Fortuna stated in that case, they should start special training for Satoru to become a saint. The Saints Festival was currently a month away. Reese suggested they should go near the elf village. There was a place where warriors who wanted to level up visited frequently. Fortuna decided to go there, but Messiah asked them to wait. Everyone looked at her. Then, she stated at Satoru's current level, he should level up steadily, little by little. But Reese stated if they take so long, Fortuna's family might be dead soon. Fortuna also added if they keep taking so long, it would be too late for so many lives. Even at this very moment, there were people suffering in this world because of the curse. Messiah knew that, but was still worried for Satoru. And Satoru tried to convince her, but she yelled out loud that she does not want Satoru to go through the feeling of losing someone. Mictran clapped to get everyone's attention. Satoru and others looked at him as he walked forward and said they should calm down. He stated that, firstly, he would like to see Satoru's true strength. They went to a place like an arena, and Satoru was amazed to see that there was a place suited for a trial of strength on the outskirts of the town. Mictran said, when a person becomes a saint, the ceremony was held in here, and currently a saint was born about once every 10 years. Reese noted 10 years was a long time, and Messiah already knew this, which was why she wanted to spend 10 years to make Satoru a saint. Mictran mentioned, according to what Messiah told him, Satoru was not from this world. He asked Satoru if he really wanted to save this world despite not being from here. Satoru was about to reply, but then Fortuna asked both competitors to take their stances, after which she began the trial of strength between Mictran and Satoru. Mictran launched an attack right away. Satoru's auto skill dodged it automatically. He was a bit perplexed by the quick attack. Messiah was worried, and Fortuna could see her brother was being merciless. Satoru tried to attack Mictran, but he would dodge and launch counterattacks right away. Satoru could see his attacks were easily avoided, while he was only able to dodge barely. He wondered how Mictran could launch such powerful attacks one after another. It seemed like Mictran's magic power was bottomless. Mictran also did not want to go easy, knowing his sister would be entrusted to him. Messiah teased Fortuna for having a brother with a sister complex. Mictran and Satoru's battle continued. Mictran said just being chosen by the goddess was not enough. Satoru's auto skill blocked another attack. Messiah was worried for him, and Mictran suggested him to just quit if he's not strong enough. Then a huge explosion occurred, and Satoru was blinded by the dust. He knows he doesn't stand a chance at all. And as he was lying on his knees, he did admit the part that even today, he was the only one who could not play any part in the conversation. Mictran figured it must be hard for him to be caught up in all this trouble. Satoru agreed it was. It's tough, suddenly being summoned and told to follow the part of being a savior. But even so, all the fights he had now were chosen by him alone. not because of anything else. Even Reese, who could not use magic, worked very hard to be helpful to others. Fortuna there brought Seitora all the way here in times of need, and she was really reliable. Messiah there always helped him, and she was the type to think about others more than herself. Mictran asked if Satoru wanted to go on. Fortuna told her brother not to be so rough on him. Satoru thought, even if he was told to save the world, the scale was too big for it to sink in. But if this was the world where Messiah and others lived, he wanted to save it. If he could reach his hand out to save someone, he would undoubtedly do it. Mictran suddenly felt a push against his attacks, and the magic power of Satoru was increasing. Satoru declared that he would become a saint, or whatever it takes to save this world. For the first time, Satoru managed to overwhelm Mictran's attacks and even blasted a huge hole in the wall behind him. Mictran could not comprehend what that attack was just now. Messiah was all happy, seeing Satoru had launched a powerful attack. She ran to him, asking what that skill was just now. Satoru told her not to just barge in here in the middle of a battle, but she just called him cool, which happens sometimes, and she was completely amazed by him. Satoru argued it does not happen sometimes. He was always cool. She nodded. Sure, he was always cool, and she likes that part about him. Satoru got flustered, and without them realizing, Reese had already stepped between them, chuckling and saying she smelled the scent of love. Mictran walked to Satoru and said he was surprised. To think Satoru was able to use such a skill at the last moment? He apologized to Satoru for testing him like that. Satoru smiled and said he does not know the name of that skill yet. Fortuna reminded her brother what she said, that Satoru was destined to be the savior. Mictran cannot deny it now, and he likes the part of Satoru who wanted to protect others more than himself. Later, they returned to the city, and Satoru tried out something on Fortuna's parents. A healing spell got cast on them continuously and automatically, probably thanks to Satoru. Mictran was amazed to see they could combine Satoru's auto skill and his healing skill. This way, they created an auto-cure spell. With this, their parents would keep recovering even when Mictran was not here. Mictran thanked Satoru, and Messiah there was not really happy to see Satoru had made up his mind about participating in next month's holy festival. Satoru stated he was going to do some special training to get even stronger, so she does not have to worry about him. Then someone raised her hand, and everyone's attention went to Reese, as she claimed to know the best place for leveling up. She offered to guide him to the elf village, Avalon. As they were on the way, Reese let them know when the elf village was in sight, and when they had arrived, it was the four of them: Reese, Messiah, Fortuna, and Satoru. Mictran had stayed behind to watch over the city. Fortuna and Satoru were confused because they were in a forest, and nothing else was in sight. Reese told them about the situation, while Satoru's auto skill kept fighting monsters approaching them in the forest. He learned that since Reese was in exile, she could not enter the elf village, so that's why they would have to level up on the outskirts of the village. Messiah figured it was fine as long as they could level up. Reese explained that since many strong monsters live in this forest, it was a hidden spot for elves who want to level up. She added that the plan was to come to this place to level up, not exactly to enter the elf village. Satoru got it. Fortuna seemed to have noticed something. She asked Reese if this was really okay, because even though she was in exile, she might have a family or something she would want to meet. She added that Reese might regret it if she didn't see them, while she still could. It was not easy for Reese. Then suddenly, a loud cry for help came from nearby, and it seemed to be an elf girl in danger, and monsters were chasing her. Her foot stumbled into something, and she fell down. Satoru saw the goblin was about to attack her. She closed her eyes, and right then, he saved her with the auto skill, Hidden Crevice, which repelled the attack and followed up by taking down the goblin with one strike. Satoru asked the girl if she was okay. The elf girl replied she was, and said she came here to level up, but ended up like this. Satoru asked her if she was an elf from Avalon, just like Reese. But after hearing Reese's name, the elf girl became eager and looked around and saw Reese standing behind Satoru. She was delighted to finally see Reese, and Reese seemed a bit nervous after meeting her. Fortuna asked Reese if she was her friend. Messiah was glad if Reese got to meet someone close to her, but to their surprise, Reese responded with an apology and asked the elf girl who she was exactly. Everyone was shocked that Reese really forgot her kin, especially when she could have had a touching reunion. Reese claimed to remember her friends, but they were Luzulu, Meaty, or Ryan. She does not know this elf girl. The elf girl also admitted it was not Reese's fault because she actually used to be a guy. This revelation left Reese and everyone even more confused, and Satoru asked just what the heck that even means. Later, the elf girl replied that it was a long story, but she was actually Lusulu, Reese's childhood friend. Reese found it hard to believe, and Lusulu knows it's hard to believe. Then Reese asked Lusulu what happened to him. Lusulu replied that he was not the only one whose gender swapped, but everyone in Avalon had ended up like this. Right now, the whole elf village was being controlled by an elf named Pura. Satoru and Reese asked who that was. Luzulu explained that Pora arrived at the elf village about 3 months ago. She was at first just an elf who lost her home after getting caught up in a conflict. She asked the elf village lord for help and let her stay in Avalon for a while. And out of sympathy, they allowed her to stay here. And in return, Pora, since she had immense magical power, started to give knowledge of medicinal herbs and spells to others. And so, after gaining the trust of the villagers, Pora started working in the palace where the village chief, Belladonna, lived. Reese became worried since the village chief was actually Reese's father. Satoru did not expect Reese was from such an amazing family. Then, Luzulu continued that after some time, an incident occurred. Pora seized control of the palace with her overwhelming magical power, and due to her skills, people's genders were swapped until they lost their will to fight, and the village fell into chaos. And right now, the village chief was being held captive in a dungeon. Reese was shocked to hear what happened to her father, and Fortuna also grew worried for the elves of the village. Luzulu bowed her head and admitted it might be sudden and confusing for them, but she would like to request their help to save Avalon. Luzulu has been trying to level up here to become strong enough to save the village, but who knows how long that would take. After she saw Satoru's strength, she thought of asking him for help. Satoru's eyes got serious as he accepted the request to help the village. Messiah knew he would say that, and so did Fortuna, who wanted to help the father of their friend right away. However, Reese told them she would like to refuse this request. After some time, Fortuna asked Messiah what was the matter with Reese. Messiah said Reese told them to just go back to leveling up, and she would join them after she finished talking to Luzulu. Satoru was worried for her, while Reese was currently standing in front of Luzulu. She recalled the past memory of the day when she was exiled, and when she asked her father why, he replied that if Reese remained in that carefree state, he could not set a proper example as the village chief. He had tried all-day lessons, everyday training, and even magic tutors for her with ancient grimoires, but neither of them had any effect on her. She was good for nothing, no matter what they tried, and so he disowned her as his daughter for being useless. After that, Reese had to leave the village and was on her own ever since that day. She cried, since, even though she tried her best in her own way, things ended up like that. Even though she loved the village and her father so much, on the day of her exile, it was as if everything was a lie. She apologized to Luzulu, but made it clear that on that day, she made up her mind that she would never involve herself with her father or the elf village anymore. Luzulu figured it should be he who should be sorry, because back then, he was not able to help Reese. Although, even in this state, he was really glad to see Reese again. He held her hands and said he would find a way to handle things with the village. She doesn't need to worry about anything here. He prayed for Reese to have a safe journey. Reese felt warmth from Luzulu's hands, and she recalled a memory from childhood when she was crying. Luzulu came and asked her what happened, only to learn she fell from the tree. Luzulu told her to just not try climbing it again, but Reese said she wanted to try to do it because she believed she would be able to do it if she kept practicing. And she also wanted to do it because everyone else could. She did not want to be left behind everyone else. Luzulu asked her to give him her hand. He had learned a magic spell from his father the day before. He cast a magic spell on her and said, from now on, even if Reese climbs trees and falls many times, she would be fine. His protection magic would always be there to guard Reese from now on. After that, Reese's father came and asked her what she was doing. It was time to go back home. Suddenly, Reese woke up in her bed inside Satoru's home. She got her cloak and thought about this whole situation. She knows if it were Satoru and the others, they could definitely defeat Pora. So maybe she should ask them for help. But she did not want to disturb their leveling up by involving them in something troublesome like this. She still has not forgiven her father, but she still could not just abandon everyone in the village. She decided to head to Luzulu's place right now on her own, to avoid catching others' attention. However, she saw Messiah was already standing outside and said she was tired of waiting for her. Satoru knew Reese would show up eventually, so he and the others were already waiting for her. Reese did not expect them to wait for her outside in the middle of the night. Satoru claimed they just made up their minds while strolling in the middle of the night, and now they have decided to visit this Pora's house to see what's going on there. After they entered the elf village, they infiltrated the inside of the village chief's mansion by knocking down some guards. Reese asked if it was really okay. Satoru said they were just taking a casual stroll. No need to think too much about it. And either way, these guys were only following Pora because they had to. So being knocked out would eventually give them an excuse not to. Satoru kinda expected elves would have stronger magic attacks, but to think they would go that far was too much. Messiah believes Satoru has mastered his powers to a limit, which was great. Reese informed them there was a hall ahead. And besides, there was a bedroom where her father used to be. She expects Pora would be there as well. After they walked for a while, they eventually encountered an elf who spotted them. Reese grew worried, and the mysterious elf mentioned he thought it was getting noisy here. He recognized Reese right away as the village chief's daughter. Satoru wondered if this guy knows about Reese. Then the guy introduced himself as Zelfina, Pora's older brother. Messiah did not expect there was a brother as well. Fortuna asked him if he was Pora's brother. Then why was he not stopping his sister? If it were her brother who would have done something wrong, she would have taught him a lesson. But her brother was always cool, sincere, and kind. Messiah told him not to pay her any mind, and Zelfina prepared a bow and arrow, adding that he had been waiting for the chief's daughter. Reese was startled when Zelfina really attacked her with the arrow, and she could not even see it coming before. Satoru asked her if she was okay, to which she replied she was fine. It just grazed her hair and earrings. Zelfina was pissed about missing his aim, and Satoru noticed that arrow was not ordinary. Zelfina was probably using wind magic to amplify the power and speed of his arrows. Fortuna also felt a powerful magic aura from that guy, and he kept staring at Reese for some reason. Reese then mustered up the courage to question the guy. Why did they attack Avalon? Satoru did not expect her to ask that, while Reese reminded the guy that the people of Avalon were kind to them. So, why would they disrespect them? Why did they take advantage of her father's kindness? The guy replied that his village, Kamuran, was destroyed because of Avalon, which came out as a surprise to everyone. He continued his backstory, that about 3 years ago, a monster stampede occurred in Avalon. Reese recalled that the people of Avalon worked together to drive them away, but the guy shouted that was wrong. It was because they let the monsters escape that the monsters turned to Kamuran and completely wiped it out. Apparently, his village was used as a scapegoat, while Avalon just protected itself under the guise of working hard. Satoru thought the stampede must have happened due to the curse of death. The guy continued that since then, he hated Avalon for such a disgusting act. Messiah reasoned that it was impossible to intentionally change the direction of a monster stampede, so there was no real reason to take revenge here. Zelfina replied, he was not really taking revenge. He just wanted this village to lose everything like they did. Now, he had had enough of these talks and was about to fight again, but then something about Reese stopped him, as she seemed to be charging up magic power and preparing for an attack. Everyone was a bit taken aback by seeing Reese like this, and even Satoru wondered, what was this light coming from her? Fortuna was feeling such a high magic power from Reese for the first time, and Zelfina was the most shocked guy here, since he heard Reese should not have been able to use magic. Satoru wondered if Reese's magic power was reacting to her emotions. Reese stated that Zelfina was just acting on a misplaced grudge, and to think her precious people and family were suffering because of it was ridiculous. Reese got exhausted due to the burst of magic power, and Messiah caught her. Zelfina laughed at her, stating all that power was for show, and now he would show the real power after he beat Reese to a half-death condition and took her back to Pora. Zelfina charged his arrow and prepared to launch it, but to his surprise, he was hit from the side by Satoru. Satoru took advantage of Zelfina being distracted to sneak up behind him and attack with the auto skill Purgatory. Zelfina could not counter it in time, taking significant damage with an explosion. After Zelfina was defeated, Satoru walked up to him and told the others that he just knocked this guy out and held back while attacking. Messiah liked his quick thinking and commented he was a completely different person now than the one she met on the first day. They decided to leave Zelfina like that and go ahead. Zelfina felt disappointed in himself and hoped his sister would forgive someone useless like him. Satoru and the gang continued further inside the mansion, reaching its innermost room. They soon spotted someone in the messy room, and Reese and Satoru looked carefully at that person resting on the bed. This elf was none other than Pora, and she wondered if these guys had come to play with her late at night. She held this maniac-like expression on her face, and Satoru tried to explain they were not here for fun, but for something serious. Pora joked it's no fun like that, considering a handsome guy came all the way here to her. Messiah and Fortuna were pissed off by the way that elf was openly flirting with Satoru and told him not to look at her. Pora figured these guys seem to have potential to fight her, so she didn't waste a second and used her magic on them to transform their genders as well. Now, Messiah, Reese, and Fortuna had become males, while Satoru transformed into a female. They were creeped out after witnessing Pora's gender-swapping ability, and the girls were a bit amazed to see Satoru was looking really cute regardless. Pora laughed as she was having fun as the one who transformed them, and she wanted them to feel how it feels to be in a hopeless situation. Messiah yelled at her to stop spouting nonsense, and Satoru said he can't fight like this. He tried to attack Pora with the auto skill, Purgatory, but nothing happened, and Messiah was confused. Why wasn't he doing something? Satoru told her he was unable to use his skills for some reason. Messiah was worried upon hearing that, and Pora explained that after someone's gender was swapped, It takes time for their strength to adapt to their body. This was also why the villagers, and even the village chief, were powerless against this skill. Reese was pissed off and questioned why she attacked her father. Pora asked, wasn't there a lot of magic power sleeping inside Reese? Reese can't deny that, and Satoru thought about it. Even though she had not used any magic so far, they saw a glimpse of Reese's magic power once. Satoru recalled what Zelfina said about Pora wanting to take Reese away. He wondered what actually was Pora's goal. Why did she swap genders? Was it just to make them unable to fight? Right then, Satoru realized that one could not adapt to their powers right away. So what about Reese's power? Because she had not adapted to her power in the first place, he figured out Reese might be able to use her powers now. Pora was delighted to see Reese's magic power slipping out, and Satoru ran towards Reese to warn her that she had been Pora's target all along, so she needed to run. But Reese just manipulated the mana around her and looked up at Pora with furious eyes. She can't tolerate the fact that everybody was suffering because of her, even her father, so she won't forgive Pora no matter what and will make her pay back for her crimes. Reese shouted Pora's name in anger as she unleashed more of her mana towards her with hostility. Messiah and Fortuna could feel the insane power behind Reese's attack. They didn't expect her to be that strong. Reese was determined to take revenge, so much that her mind went completely blank with rage. She could not hold back all this power anymore, and this mana felt like it was overflowing from her body, as if responding to her feelings. Even without trying, she was able to direct her magic attacks at Pora just with a thought. She recalled her father's words that if she cannot use magic, she was just a half-elf. Reese wondered if her father knew about Reese's powers. If so, then why did he exile her? Messiah suddenly had to move due to a random attack coming her way. She tried to speak to Reese to see if she was sane right now. Satoru figured her mana was so overflowing that she did not know how to handle it, just like an overspeeding car. Reese was feeling somewhat guilty, and her body was scared of her own power for some reason. Right then, she heard Satoru's voice calling out for her, and he hugged her from behind. He asked Reese to relax, or this building would collapse from her powers. Reese apologized and said she didn't mean to hurt Satoru and the others. Satoru told her they might end up killing Pora at this rate before even getting to question what she was after. Suddenly, Satoru felt a strange presence behind him, and when he looked back, he saw it was coming from Pora, who had dissipated the magic power which attacked her. She thanked Reese for this feast, and her unharmed state surprised Satoru and others. Pora claimed this was her ability, mana absorption, which, like the name suggests, drains mana directed at her. Reese was now the target of her drain, and she revealed the reason she came here for Reese was because she heard a rumor about a prodigy with insane mana in this village. Because of that fact, Pora revealed that the village chief exiled Reese because he wanted to keep her hidden from people who would want to steal that massive amount of mana within Reese. But Pora knew Reese was bound to show up sooner or later, and she could feel the mana filling her up now. She felt amazing with so much of it. Reese found it hard to believe, and she questioned Pora. What was she planning to do after getting so much mana? She reasoned that Pora already got her revenge on the village, so there should be no point in hurting anyone anymore. Pora replied she was not exactly wrong, and stated how Reese's talent ruined her own life. If she could actually control her powers, maybe she would be living a normal life with her family right now. Satoru tried to stop Pora from saying harsh words. Then Reese stopped him and admitted Pora might be right about that, but if she did not have this power, she would not have left this village and never would have met her friends here. Her friends were really nice and willing to go to dangerous places with her. She was glad to have met friends like them. Satoru was flattered by her words, and Reese continued that she realized one thing, thanks to Pora, that even when dealing with a rough situation, moving forward or not was their own decision. Pora accused that it was easy to say for someone who has never been through hell. She decided to just show them what it was like to watch the people one cares about die in front of their eyes as she unleashed magic power around her. Satoru got a bad feeling about this, and he and Fortuna were not sure what to do when they couldn't use their skills. Satoru called out to everyone and claimed to have a plan. Pora told them it was useless. They would not be able to do anything in front of her powers. Right then, some home furniture was thrown at Pora, which she deflected with a magic barrier. Apparently, Messiah was the one who crafted this furniture, and Fortuna was the one who lifted and threw them at Pora. Messiah and Fortuna were amazed by their increased physical powers as males. Fortuna then decided to go for it, and charged at Pora, and launched a kick at her. She claimed that if she could not use magic, she still got her martial arts. Pora mocked her. Even though she got some kind of plan, it was useless. Then, a knife was thrown at Pora, and she barely managed to avoid it. She wondered who could have launched this sneak attack. It was Satoru, and Messiah told him he missed. Satoru replied it was hard to aim with his changed strength. Pora asked if that was all they could come up with, since it was too easy to render their plan a failure. She used magic to attack all three of them at once, and they suffered quite some damage as well. Pora claimed since she absorbed Reese's magic powers, Pora's powers were doubled. However, she noticed Reese was not there in front of her, prompting her to look for her. But turns out Reese had been charging up a magic attack right behind her, while Satoru and others were distracting her. Reese reminded Pora she was not going to forgive her, and her charged magic attack scared Pora. She did not expect Reese would focus the scattered, uncontrollable magic into a single point. She was scared for the first time in this fight, and she knows even if she tries to use magic absorption, it won't keep up with that huge magic ball. Pora figured this must be what true talent looks like. She recalled that elves were born with males, having way more magic power than females usually, but there were some exceptions, with some female elves with more mana. Pora had loved magic ever since she was a child, and got lost in studying about it. Her brother once asked Pora in the middle of the night if she was not going to sleep yet. Pora wanted to study a little bit longer. She knew if she didn't have talent in magic, then she would just have to master the theory. Eventually, she came to learn about gender transformation and got ideas for leveling the playing field. But on the day when her village was destroyed, she was left shocked, and her mind changed. She should not think of magic as something handed to her, but she had to seize it for herself. Pora can't believe she lost to Reese now, even after she did what she had always believed to be right. As Pora was about to fall from exhaustion, she was assisted by Reese, and she saw that Reese had a pleading expression as she requested Pora to change her village back to the way it was. Pora realized she had always been envying people like Reese, who were so powerful, talented, and yet very warm and beautiful at the same time. After that, things returned to normal in the village, and Satoru was glad everything was resolved here now. Reese was also happy that the people of Avalon had been freed, and she thanked her friends for being there for her. Satoru told her, "There's no need for thanks," but she won't stop bowing. Soon, an elf boy came to greet Reese, and she recognized it was Luzulu, back to his former self. He thanked everyone for their help, and Satoru was kinda amazed Luzulu was really a guy, although he doesn't look much different. Reese asked what happened to Pora, to which Luzulu replied she was locked up, and the village chief would be the one to decide what to do with her. Satoru still had not met the village chief, and at the same time, the person in question came to greet Satoru and the others. He introduced himself as the chief of the elf village, Belladonna. He bowed down and mentioned having heard about everything from Luzulu. He could not thank them enough for what they did for them by saving his village. Satoru told him if he wanted to thank someone, it shouldn't be him, but her, as he pointed in Reese's direction. It was hard for Belladonna to meet eyes with his daughter Reese, and there was tension between them. Satoru gave her a light push from behind, and Reese saw her friends were cheering for her. Reese mustered up the courage and walked up to her father, but she froze up when she reached him. Her father spoke first and bowed down as he apologized to Reese for exiling her, just because she was unable to control her magic powers, and he thought she could be a danger to the village. "But I won't deny that I just ended up hurting you and was a failure of a parent." Reese felt sincerity in his apology and hugged her father, which moved the tough guy's heart. She claimed to have many things she wanted to say to him, and that she was still mad at him. But more than anything, she was glad her father was safe now. She really was hurt when her father banished her, and didn't even tell her the reason behind it. She also hated those magic training lessons, and a lot of other things as well. Satoru was glad she was able to speak her heart freely, and Reese told father that regardless of everything, she was just really happy to see him again. Around the same time in Frisia, there were people coming to the city for the famous Saints Festival, and every kind of people, from strategists to combatants who worked really hard to grind their levels, were gathering in Frisia. Since the Battle of Heroes for the trial was about to begin soon, and a mysterious, hardworking girl was also training to participate in it.